proud members of the Fan First Sports Network.
That's where I see the Quentin Ives effect coming into play.
Yeah.
That to me depends more on his motor and less on his size. You can be a put-away guy who's smaller. You just have to be able to keep going. That's all it is.
Grinding in the trenches, taking those hits constantly, and I guess. I just don't know if I see it.
How well is the offensive line like we think that they might be?
And that's the other thing, too. We talked about that in our offensive line show.
45, 40, 35, 40, he's gonna go! It's time, people, feel us!
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better! He gets If we die, we die!
Man, put a child in that. Put him in the aisle.
Bring that trophy back to Lincoln!
Welcome into another episode of the Big Red Junkies. This is Matt. I am BJ. This is Jed. And we are here to talk running backs. We are previewing the running back room coming out of spring. We've been doing these. We've already dropped the offensive line, which I thought was a fantastic show.
Mm-hmm. And so did everybody else.
I was saying, according to you guys, it was a fantastic show, too. Our numbers on that are the best we've seen since
We're all fucking excited about them.
Since the regular season last year.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate all the support, guys. If you haven't already, find that like button, share our stuff, subscribe if you haven't, hit the notification bell. I don't know that I've ever even talked about the notification bell, but in case you don't know that, that'll give you a notification. That's
Hell,
what
there's
the whole
a
thing is.
there's a guy in Germany that watches all of our shows. He watches every time. So thank you to you all the way over there.
you.
Bet
guy
he's
in
hit that
Germany?
notification bell.
Yeah, probably
Hey,
so.
and since you're in Germany, send me some Jaeger.
He does like Jaeger. It's all he drinks, in fact. He probably gets the good stuff over there.
I know.
I'm sure
fresh off the tap.
I'm sure ours is messed up over here compared to what he gets. Drop a comment in if you have any idea who is going to be backing up Emtt Johnson. I think a lot of people assume it's going to be Quentin Ives.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that there might be a freshman, a true freshman that might be getting a little bit of time this year. We're going to see because this room is small but mighty.
Yeah.
I got a little bit more fired up and excited about this episode because I've been so back and forth on the Emtt Johnson conversation. I think that's naturally where this is going to start anyway. But I've been so back and forth on the Emtt Johnson.
Realistically, who else? I mean, there's no stats to bring up for all the other people.
Yeah.
Tangible things. So, yeah.
You're 100% right. But I've been so back and forth on the whole Emtt Johnson being the superstar guy because it really did rub me the wrong way when he was so willing to jump in the portal and get his name out of here to almost what seemed like put pressure on the coaching staff to basically commit to him for this upcoming year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that. Prior to that, you guys all know, you guys know that I was an Emtt Johnson believer from 2 years ago. I've loved the kid ever since the first time I saw him get on the field.
You loved his teeth first and foremost.
I thought he was, I loved the way he spoke, and I was like, damn, that dude's got perfect teeth. He needs to be like on a Colgate commercial or some shit. But I mean, in all reality, I think he's one of those high character guys that I didn't like one move that he made, and I think I was kind of holding that against him a little bit too harshly. But then I like running back. I think any Husker fan knows and loves is Amir Abdullah. He was doing it was on TikTok or something. I saw it the other day. He did had a conversation with him about where he is now, and Abdullah was talking about the similarities between his game and what Emtt Johnson could be doing or should be doing. Yada, yada. The biggest thing I took from it, obviously I don't remember much about what they were talking about, was actually what they looked like. Sitting next to each other, a guy who's been in the NFL, active career for 10 years, had a great career at Nebraska. Emtt Johnson made him look small. And prior to this year, I've thought Emtt Johnson was a pretty small dude.
I still don't know. I guess I just don't understand what you're getting at here because Amir Abdullah was not a big guy either.
I'm not saying he was a big guy. I'm saying that I was giving too much to the idea that Emtt Johnson was too small to be an every down back.
Oh, maybe you're giving too much idea to what kind of anomaly Amir Abdullah was.
I think my big thing is I've never really been, whether it's running back, I know we're talking running backs, but just in a general sense, and we dealt with this a lot during the Scott Frost era where he was all about the measurables. And if you were a half an inch too short on the offensive line, then you absolutely could not play. And you end up transferring to Montana or other places like that some guys transferred to. And I never really get into the whole thing of what your actual size is one way or another. Can you specifically in the NFL, you're talking about somebody like Amir Abdullah. I mean, you've got other guys that were small guys. You got Barry Sanders, we can go up and down all these tiny guys. Steve Smith, the wide receiver from Carolina, should have never had a career with how small he was. If you can fucking play, you can fucking play. It does not matter what
Brandon Cooks, that type of guy.
I really don't get caught up too much in what your size is. I care about and we kind of talked about this with the linebacker show where, some of these guys might be deemed undersized. And I know one of the comments on our linebacker show was about how Zach Thomas, the Hall of Fame linebacker from the Dolphins, it was 5'11", and Zach Thomas was a fucking machine. Like,
true story.
Yeah, we talked about how some of these guys might be undersized, but that does not diminish their talent. That does not diminish how well we think that these guys are going to play. I just don't necessarily get caught up in what your size is. If you can play, you can play. And the NFL specifically, you can also talk about whether you get in trouble or not. They don't care if you get in trouble.
True.
If you can play, they'll sign you. And
that's fucking true.
Greg Hardy, Kareem Hunt.
Let's call Danny Woodhead and find out if he thought he was too small for the NFL.
Danny Woodhead's another one.
He had a fucking 7 or 8 year career, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, more than that, I think. But so yeah, if you can play football, you can play football. It doesn't matter what size you are.
And my whole point was I was actually just kind of walking my stance back.
Yeah, no,
I think I've thought he was a little undersized to be an every down back sort of a guy. If he's got the skills for it, if he's got the talent for it, if he's got the will and the drive for it, and the coaches believe in him, probably going to do it.
Yeah.
Based on the numbers that we were looking at here, Jed went in deep on this. Like, this spreadsheet's kind of mind boggling. Probably going to use ChatGPT to break it all down for myself later. But really diving into this stuff, one of the biggest things that stood out to me, and before we jump into the actual numbers, was actually, so you went back eight seasons, back to 2016, seasons. And you were looking at college football as a whole, Power 4 schools as a whole, Power 5 for some of it, obviously, but Big 10 schools as a whole, and then obviously what Nebraska's done and what Dana Holgerson's done. The number that stood out to me the most, and this goes back to our conversation kind of about size and style and body type, whether or not you can play. The correlation between running from 2016, the point you made, to 2024, that percentage of teams with a running back that had over 1,000 yards, total yards from scrimmage, went from 59% down to 44%, and pretty steady decline.
Yeah,
the whole way through.
And that's, by the way, that's 1,000 yards both rushing and receiving. So,
yeah, total yard. Yeah,
I just want to make sure clear for everybody.
Everybody knows, and I think the other thing that you can kind of look at that is if you think back, like think about when, like Ezekiel Elliott was like the last big time first round draft pick running back that you can really remember that came out that was like ballyhooed as this is going to be the next every down guy, right? And then running backs just like fell off the cliff in the NFL when it comes to being an every down back. Yep. Then we had specialists, we had hammers, we had pass catchers, we had third down backs, we had first and second down backs, like, and then it was no running back should go in the first round ever. No running back should even go in the second round ever. And now all of a sudden you saw, actually this year was one of our first drafts in like 4 or 5 years that you really saw, what was it, 3 or 4 running backs that went in the top like 40 draft picks or some shit like that.
Something.
There were like 15 running backs taken before what's his name, Sanders? I can't even remember now. Oh, Shador. You forget 5th round draft picks names. I can't keep all that stuff straight in my head. But yeah, fuck Colorado. Let's dive into these numbers a little bit. I've jabbered on about this, but long story short, sorry, Emtt Johnson, if you get a hold of this, I was doubting you a little bit more than I probably should have. Jed's about to tell you why.
No, I mean, so, we talked about the history of, at least since 2016, of guys going over 1,000 yards as a running back. Nebraska's done it 3 times in the last 8 full seasons. Do you know those 3 running backs?
No.
And for you guys listening and watching, without cheating, can you name those 3 running backs that went over 1,000 total yards?
How far back?
Since 2016.
Was Zigbo in there?
Zigbo went over 1,000 yards
Zigbo's
rushing
in
by
there.
himself. So yeah,
Yeah.
there was 2016, 2018, and 2022.
Was Anthony Grant in there?
Anthony Grant was
Okay.
2022. So 2016. This one I would have never guessed in a billion years that he went over 1,000. I mean, it makes sense because he was the guy, but at the same time, I didn't think he was that good.
Looks like Mo Washington?
Terrell Newby.
Terrell Newby. Nope, wouldn't
Yeah, I
have got
would
there.
have never gotten Terrell Newby.
Wouldn't have got there. I love the guy, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't have got there.
Yeah, no.
He was a good straight line runner.
Yeah. Yeah, and with where that ranks in the Big Ten specifically, again, 3 guys, it's basically close to last. Purdue and Rutgers both have only had 2. Ohio State, in comparison, is number 1 with 10. They lead the entire country.
Shit, and they had 2 of them this last season.
Hey, I don't know if you know this. Ohio State's kind of good.
They're kind of good.
And they get good players.
And they're running, both of those running backs went in the top 30 picks,
Yeah,
35 picks.
Yeah. But as far as Emmitt Johnson goes, it's kind of funny looking at his numbers from last year. He had almost 900 total yards. So he, considering how his season last year started, I thought it was pretty interesting that he got very close to 1,000 yards. Probably if he would have had at least one more game, he might have gotten to 1,000 yards.
Considering especially the fact that he was supposedly told directly by a coach and that was calling his plays in front of the entire fucking team that he hated him and he wasn't going to play him.
So, like, if you break down the games with basically under Satterfield, rushing yards, he had 597. So in 9 games, rushing yards, 9 games, 284. 4 games under Holgerson, he had 313. Receiving yards was 117 to 170 as far as the first 9 games to the last 4 games. So you look at the possibility of what he can do under an entire season with Dana Holgerson. And if you look at the history of Holgerson as an offensive coordinator, whether it's at Texas Tech, Houston, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, and Houston again as the head coach, he's pretty much had a running back go over 1,000 yards almost every single season.
Yeah, it's wild.
Outside of 4 or 5 seasons, he's had a running back over 1,000 yards.
Well, just looking at your numbers that you ranked comparison-wise in the Big Ten, Holgerson by himself would rank higher than Nebraska would.
Yeah, he had 4 in that 2016 to 2024 window, yeah.
So he'd be tied with Iowa, Michigan State, Northwestern.
And technically, he would have 1 less season because he wasn't coaching in 2024, realistically. So he had 4 in 1 less season.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So the potential for that room is specifically Emmitt Johnson is, to me, really high
that 120 yards per game. That's huge.
in the last 4 games.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's like I'm scrapping the first half of the season.
Yeah.
Because you had, like I said, a play caller who didn't believe in the guy and didn't want to call plays for him.
Mhm.
In 1 week, 1 bye week, essentially, we'll call it 2 weeks if you want to, the offense shifted gears enough that he was now tripling his production on average.
Yeah.
So you look at that and you say, okay, well, where are we going to go with this? If he can get any better than he was in those last 3 games, if he's averaging 120 per game, you're looking at 1,400, just shy of 1,500 yards for the season.
Yeah.
And that's through 12 games.
Yeah.
You throw a bowl game in there and he throws in maybe another 1 or 2 Wisconsin performances, and all of a sudden you're looking at a 1,700 yard season.
Yeah. I mean,
let's not get greedy, but
I'm just saying, like, when's the last time we had anybody even sniff those numbers coming out of the running back position?
well, that was kind of the point of why
Amir Abdullah would be the last time, wasn't it?
That's kind of what. Well, I mean, that's kind of why I brought up the status as far as the 1,000 yards. A lot of people are asking, like, can Emmitt Johnson get that over that 1,000 yard number? Obviously, he has to stay healthy. One thing that we haven't seen in a while, and maybe because of the lack of experience that we have in the running back room, Emmitt Johnson is going to be the bell cow. We haven't seen a bell cow for a while.
That's my big question, though. Can he be a bell cow?
Yeah.
And when I think of bell cow, I think of a Divine Azigbo. I think of a
Anthony Grant.
an Anthony Grant, but I think more of like Rex Burkhead.
Okay.
You know, I think back to games where he was getting to the end of a game where we're just putting a team away and he's got 33 carries.
That Michigan State game where he broke the record for most carries in a game.
Yeah. Like, is Emmitt Johnson a guy that I think can do that? Absolutely not. I don't think he's going to be our put away guy though. Like when you just look at simple size on our roster, that's where I see the Quentin Ives effect coming into play.
Yeah.
That to me depends more on his motor and less on his size. You can be a put away guy who's smaller. You just have to be able to keep going. That's all it is.
Grinding in the trenches, taking those hits constantly. And I guess I just don't know if I see it.
How well is the offensive line like we think that they might be?
And that's the other thing too. We talked about that in our offensive line show. How much is the offensive line being better going to affect the way he can run the ball?
I think we should be looking at not total yards, but just rushing yards and seeing if he can get to 1,000 yards there.
That
he was over 100 yards in each of those last 3 games.
Do we think that we're going to run the ball
Not rushing.
traditionally that way though? Because like that's the thing about Holgerson's offense.
I just don't
right?
think
He
that
loves to
offense
do a
is
lot
what
of.
it-
He loves to do a lot of utilizing pass plays, little tiny flares out of the backfield, little tiny screens out of the backfield. It's not like a full setup halfback screen, but little tiny, little outs like that with the running back that are really incorporated as a part of the running game, but they're considered a pass, so they're coming in as passing stats.
Yep.
I think if you factor it that way, yeah, you're probably looking at a 100-yard a game guy.
I just don't know if that's the offense that they're going to run to be able to stack up 100 yards a game. I think could he get 75 a game, 80 a game? Yeah, probably. Which would still get you to 1,000. I mean, or really, really close to it.
Holgerson likes to use 2 running backs in a lot of sets. Do you see Quentin Ives being that guy? Do you see, the other talk around anybody else that's been on here? Like the primary talk on that is Jamarian Parker coming out of St. Louis.
They love Mekhi Nelson too.
Mekhi Nelson?
They love Mekhi Nelson, yes.
And he's the redshirt freshman from Pennsylvania. He's a guy that's basically the same size as Emtt Johnson. I don't know much about him. Do you know much about him?
No.
Just that they love him?
They talk about him all the time. They talked about him last year as kind of the scout team guy that they just couldn't cover and all that stuff. So they love Mekhi Nelson.
Makes me worried about our DBs. From a coverage standpoint, I'm joking. Because outside of that, like Quentin Ives, like, are we going to see them use him as the hammer like we did with Dowdell, whose name should not be spoken? Moneybags. I'm just kidding.
It's the way college football is now. Or
it
college
is.
Sports is. Who cares?
It is.
I wasn't terribly upset that we weren't continuing to use a blind ram back there.
Are you referencing the fact that he couldn't see the hole?
And that he hit it really hard. Yes.
He did hit it really hard.
Hey, he scored like 12 touchdowns. I'll take it.
He did.
Like, whatever.
He did, all from the 3-yard line.
At the expense of Ben Scott's ass. Yes.
That's not a situation you can say a blind squirrel finds a nut. That was 12 freaking touchdowns.
That's 12 nuts. That is 12 nuts.
That's 12 nuts. 12 nuts. I don't have anything else on the running backs. The biggest thing about Emtt Johnson is I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping, obviously, like, if he is the bell cow, that he can stay healthy through it. And that's not going back to the whole size conversation. It's just in general of, when we sometimes expect, who's the Trey Bryant, I think it was, that running back that was supposed to be the guy that was when we went up to Oregon, and then he had those knee issues and all that.
That's right.
It's like just kind of one of those things where every time we expect a guy to be the bell cow, like something happens.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity. Let's see if for once we can cash in on it.
And so like you just start to look at, and we kind of already started bringing people up, and it's like the guys behind Emtt Johnson. It just shows how much we need Emtt Johnson to be the leader in that room and to play as much as possible. Because when you have the only other 3 guys that have a carry in college football, you got 8 total carries between Quentin Ives, Kenneth Williams, and Mekhi Nelson, and 14 total yards. Like, it doesn't mean that they can't do it, but at the same time,
I was just going to ask that. Is that more of a cause for pause from a standpoint of let's not rush to judgment on these guys? We have no idea what they look like. Or if they not gotten a run because they're not that good.
I mean, the fact that Quentin Ives has gained like 30 pounds since he got here 2 years ago, gives me, kind of hope for him. I really like that possibility. I know that they've loved him ever since he came in here. But
from a physique perspective, He looked really good in the bowl game.
Mhm.
He looked like a big time running back. If he could do it, if he could put it on the field.
You know, and again, it goes back to, you know, will the offensive line be what we expect them to be?
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.